that's where it's important for you to have somebody next to you that will say, like, yes, that's a good deal. You should do that. Right. And lean on your network of people that can back you up in your decision making. And I
Yep.
still do that now. Like if I run across something, we bought a project last week. And if I run across it, like I call somebody I respect and say, hey, I'm excited about this. This is what I got going on. And if they say, hey, hold up, you need to think about this, or maybe going too full fast here. Are you finished with that? Then I really lean on my network as a
Mm.
support for my decision making, and that speeds it up a lot.
Don, why don't we start with a little bit about yourself, man? Tell us where you've been, things that you've gone through, and kind of where you're at now.
Sure, man. I really appreciate this. Just the opportunity to tell my story is a humbling experience. So I like to say that I'm just a regular dude. I invest in real estate. Real estate's changed my life. I started off probably the traditional path. I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, south side of Tallahassee, 600 square foot house, on that side of town. Had very hardworking parents, did everything they could for us, but everything they could do was a lot different than the life my kids are experiencing. So
Yep.
grew up, my mom was a teacher, so I said, hey, look, that looked like something that I could do, and got a teaching license. Eventually became a principal of a school. Gave a whole ton of hours to community in Memphis, Tennessee, helping turn around a school in a pretty bad area. Gave so much that my wife was finally like, hey, look, I need you to be home. So I had to take a big pay cut to start over and kind of find something that would allow me to be home more. Went back to teaching and had time. And when
Okay.
you have time, you can start exploring other things. Picked up a few rental houses just as like, I know I need some side income coming in. I heard this might be a good thing, listening to podcasts. Of course, content like this wasn't so prevalent at that time, but listening to some podcasts and then, decided I could make it a business after having a conversation with some people who had made it a business. And now full-time real estate investor, actively and own everything from single family houses to motels to storage buildings.
Wow.
Just a really blessed life. Kids are back here swimming in the pool, so you may hear
It's
them
all right, man.
enjoying
That's what it's
one of
all
their
about.
spring break days today. But it's just a really, really good season of life, really good vehicle to be in. And I love what you're doing as far as like sharing the story.
Appreciate it, man.
Because it's really like if you would have asked me 5 years ago what my life would have looked like, I would have been at work right now, like yelling at somebody else's kids. Hey, sit down, be quiet.
I hear you. Yeah, man. I mean, look, so you've got that educational basis on your
Yeah.
side, so you understand the importance, as we talked about, right? One of the E's that I value, core value, is educate, right? So not only are you understanding the value of educating the youth, but you understand the importance of education for yourself to the development that you have put into you to get to where you are now. So as you have now, are you fully transitioned out of being a teacher principal into real estate, or like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I don't work for anybody else full time. I still do some consulting. So every now and
Okay.
then somebody will ask me to come and speak or come in, work with a group of folks that are trying to do some school turnaround. But for the most part, I am full time real estate investor. So this is where I spend probably
Wow.
90 to 95% of my energy for
Okay.
sure.
Now, when you decided to go into real estate, right? Started wanting to get that side income going, did you like, how did you get started? Did you watch YouTube videos? Did you join a mastermind? Like, what did you do to, you had to have some sort of, hey, I got to get some knowledge to get this going.
Hey, look, I wish I had known about masterminds if they were a thing. I've only been doing this for 6 years, but I feel like the world is changing so fast. Like now
Mm-hmm.
masterminds are everywhere, but I
Yep.
didn't know about masterminds then. So the process really didn't start with real estate investing. It started with just like being financially make sure you can still hear me here. I was
Yeah.
one of those guys that, like, I was making six figures, but the money was just all getting, pissed away.
Bills and family and so on and so forth,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean, bills, family, vacations that we couldn't afford, furniture, credit cards, all of that. So I remember having to drive to work every morning and starting the Dave Ramsey podcast. I read the Total Money Makeover book. My wife and I started sitting down on Sundays and having these tense budget meetings on a weekly basis, just trying to follow his advice and direction. And, he would hate how much money I borrowed today because he doesn't believe in borrowing money. But,
I know, man.
But what he did for us is he got us to start thinking about money in a literate way. He got us to start thinking together about how we would pursue financial goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the start, was just starting to listen to podcasts. And I remember when I discovered them, I just started subscribing to a bunch of them. Just, I couldn't wait to get in the car to ride. I never have told her this, but sometimes we would be in the car and I would have, my little earphones sticking out of one side of my ear, and not the AirPods, but see, these are new, but the what you call it? The little string.
Why? Yep.
And I would be listening to somebody, the Rental Income Podcast. They had one with he's in disfavor now, Clayton Morris. I listened to Clayton Morris for everything he produced.
Wow.
But it got me thinking about scaling a portfolio and what it would look like to really have a lot of rental units instead of just having a few.
Okay.
Now, my first mastermind of sorts, you could say, was at church.
Okay.
There was an elder at my church where after church one day, he was on his laptop and I made a joke and I was like, man, you should be fellowshipping with the folks. Why are you on your laptop in the church building? And he was like, you should really come over here and look. And I went over there. I still remember this like it was yesterday. He had an Excel spreadsheet up with all these addresses. And you have to understand, as somebody who didn't believe that, I didn't think there were people that had this. I thought this was like a fairy tale. So he said, I own all these houses. And he said, this is the total of my rent. And he said, I don't owe any money. So this is how much I bring in a month. And this is how much I give to the church. This was his foundational conversation.
Okay.
And I was just like blown away, away from this conversation. That turned into me inviting him and a couple of the other guys from church over to dinner, sat at the house. And I remember he told me, if you can run a school and be a principal, you can run a real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time in my life, probably 27, 28, that I ever thought about running my own business at all. Of course, now I know I had failed at some other business startups. I had done some Amazon drop shipping and Forex trading, all these things that you try, trying to make money. But when he said that, it was like a light bulb.
Wow.
Like, let me figure out how quick I can get this to be a business so I can be out of working for somebody else.
John, you were listening to a bunch of podcasts, right? So I want to break this down into two things. You were listening to a bunch of podcasts. Obviously, there's a lot of information being shared on podcasts.
Yes.
How did you, one, digest the information, right? How did you organize the information? Let's say that. And then how did you put it into action?
Yeah, I wish I could say I had like an actual process to organize it. I mean, Apple Podcasts kind of does a good job of reminding you what you last listened to. It reminds you like what you need to resume, like pick up from where you left off.
Okay.
But I can't say that I was like categorizing this or putting it somewhere. I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. I read all kinds of the stuff you're supposed to read when you start listening to podcasts, and everybody's mentioning the same books over and over. But as far as organizing it, just being totally honest, like I was an educator and I still didn't do a good job of organizing the information.
So you just started taking action as you were listening to the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little journal I still keep with me, a little black journal. I write down my thoughts, my goals for the week, my reflections and takeaways on different things. So that probably counts as some sort of organization. But outside of that, like I started going to a local meetup in town when
Okay.
I got my first few properties. And when you get around people that are doing it, that's almost the best education. Like
Yeah.
I get a lot from the podcast that I listen to right now and YouTube
Mhm.
videos, but I get even more from the folks that I'm able to connect with that are actively doing projects, because it's like
Okay.
an ongoing education.
Yeah.
Somebody
You're
calls you
always
first thing in
learning.
the morning, they're like, yeah, hey man, I got a deal this morning. And you're like, tell me the numbers. And like you're kind of learning because you're in the business.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yep. Okay. So now you also made a comment from the elder from your church. He said that if you can run a school as a principal, you can run a
Yeah.
real estate business. Now, I'm going to specifically bringing this up because I'm sure there's other teachers, principals, academia-based jobs where people are probably going to listen to this and ask themselves, well, how can I also do that? So, how did being a principal, based off what the comment that the elder made, help you be able to run a real estate business or manage a
And this
portfolio?
now you hit an area that I'm really excited about, because
Okay.
I've got a member of my team, one of my right hands on my team, that's a former teacher. I got him to come out, and it's like as as an educator, we do so many things that are of extremely high value that are not well compensated in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that said, we also provide a great community service, and everybody that's still teaching, I always tell them like I'm still a teacher. I like teaching real estate now. It's just I appreciate what they're doing on a daily basis. And when COVID happened, I really realized how much I appreciated it. But yeah, I guess um, mainly like being thoughtful and planning, like that planning skill of having to plan a lesson, plan a course of action is very
Okay.
important. It's a skill a lot of teachers have. As a school leader, like having to set a vision and set objectives and say, okay, this is how I want to do this project in this amount of time. Uh, like moving pieces around on the field, right? Like that teamwork aspect is something that principals and school leaders are used to. Um, and for folks in academia in particular, because I spent 3 years teaching at Ole Miss, like
Mm.
you have so much energy and time that you put into bureaucracy and having to go up levels of things. Like just imagine how much progress you can make if you're the decision maker, or
Yeah.
if you just notch that down a little bit and you have a team, but you're still getting to make decisions in a much more reactive way. I mean,
Yep.
it's a great business to be in for folks that have been educators. And frankly, I mean, I was still teaching for about 3 years before I fully jumped in. So that was
Okay.
as a professor. So you can do a lot of this as a side job, as a side hustle, as you dip your toe in before you jump off.
So John, okay. So you're saying you can do this as a side hustle, right? Meaning, let's get our side hustle income to match or surpass what our current income potentially is. So this way we have something to now segue out of and into. So
Yeah.
obviously real estate has a lot of moving pieces, right? You got marketing, which is reaching out to folks, or maybe inbound marketing where you send out mailers or whatever the case may be. How did you manage all those things while still being a professor and teaching, um, and having a real estate business? How did you manage the calls? How did you do the follow-ups, the documents, closings, I guess construction? Like how did you handle all that all the while having a full-time job?
Right. So I wish I could say that this was like some organized, really thoughtful, streamlined process. Um, I've been a hustler for a long time. I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
dad, you know, got up every day, he went to work, came home, then he came home and told us what to do. Weekends were not. I remember. I remember certain cartoons that it was a very rare thing if we got to stay up and sleep in on a Saturday morning and watch cartoons.
Mm.
It was work. It was a grind. So just frankly speaking, like I could have started a lot sooner and just doing some of the activities. Of course, not doing them to the level that we do them now, not talking to as many folks as I talk to now,
Mm-hmm.
but just some of the work. We blow so much time, social media, TV, streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was just so much time that I was spending, and I hate to say it, but like every weekend back then, I would fish. I was, going out with my buddies before we had kids, like all this stuff that was time that was wasted. And so I just started using that time to text and call sellers or, transaction coordinate. And I have to admit, at some point, you become a bad employee once you get addicted to it, and now you're doing this stuff more than you're doing your main job.
Yep. Same thing here. Same thing here.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. No, so it's important that you mentioned the word hustle, right? People think that you're gonna just come in here nonchalantly, just do deals. Like, folks, it takes effort, it takes energy, it takes dedication and commitment to get deals done. Is it easy to do? Yeah, the concepts are easy, but you have to be willing to put the work in, right? Like you're sacrificing, from a younger age, your father instilled in you, hey, we got to work. Saturdays come, like you said, it wasn't cartoon time, it was work time. So that work ethic was built into you. But the folks that are listening, guys, you got to make a decision on what the goal is, right? John made a decision. Hey, I need to be home with my family. My wife needs me home with the children. I need to find an avenue that allows me to do that. And that's what John did. John took education from podcasts, going to meetups, folks in his church, got the knowledge, and now has positioned himself to do real estate transactions, all the while now segueing 100% into it. Okay, so John, we've talked about the education part, right? And we've talked about how those information that you received help you make or take actions. Did you ever at all feel scared or nervous to take action? Because a lot of what happens is folks get this information, but then they get paralysis by analysis. Did you ever experience any of that? Or were you just like, hey, full throttle, I'm going after it?
All right. So I'm definitely a full throttle type of guy. But I'm a full throttle type of guy while I'm scared out of my mind. And
same here.
Even now, I'm still doing deals. And some days I'm just like, whoo, this is close. It's really stretching myself sometimes. But definitely was more of like, I want to put this action to use type of guy.
Okay.
But I mean, I remember like my first project, I like to tell the story. Yeah, I was that guy who had a buddy swipe his credit card and give me some money, and I bought the first house with that. So, seeing my credit score shoot down when I did that, and like, man, dude, I worked hard to get that credit score up, and I just maxed out a credit card and did some crazy stuff. That gets questions from your wife. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Like, what'd you just do? Like, didn't you should have known this was going to happen before you did it. But my wife is kind of been this rock of support as well. I think if you're experiencing that paralysis of analysis and all of that, like that's where it's important to have somebody right next to you that you could just say, hey, look, and I'm sorry for all the screaming.
Oh, but, it's okay, man. Enjoy that spring break.
But that's where it's important for you to have somebody next to you that will say, like, yes, that's a good deal. You should do that, right? And lean on your network of people that can back you up in your decision making. And I still do that now. Like if I run across something, we bought a project last week, and if I run across it, like I call somebody I respect and say, hey, I'm excited about this. This is what I got going on. And if they say, hey, hold up, you need to think about this, or maybe going too fast here. Are you finished with that? Then I really lean on my network as a support for my decision making, and that speeds it up a lot.
Wow, that's very instrumental, right? First time hearing it, right? You think of leaning on people as maybe masterminds and things of that nature, people in that community, but just having a group of people, could be people out in a different industry, but something just as a sounding board that could give you some reflection on the decisions that you're willing to take. Man, that's phenomenal, man. It's just a great way to gain support, to gain courage. Because, hey, man, look, we all go through this process with some fears, right? Some of us do the business 10 toes over the edge. I'll raise my hand. I'm all full throttle, right? And just like, with your wife, my wife, words of caution, just say, hey, just think of this, look for this, make sure this and this. I'm like, all right. So now, like, when I see things happening, light bulbs go off, right? It's like the missus is sitting on the shoulder, like, hey, man, I told you about this. You gotta pay attention. So no, it's great to have that support system around you. And another place that I've found a great support system is like these local RIAs that we have in our areas, right? If you go to these real estate meetups, you can make a lot of networks and friendships out of that, where you can bounce ideas off of one another, man. That's a phenomenal way to help you process what your deals that you're looking at and going through them. So tell us about that first deal that you did, man. Like, what was it? A single family? Was it a multi, fix and flip? Like, what was it like?
Yeah. So like I tell you, all my secrets, every deal I do is exactly the same.
Okay.
I buy a house that's distressed, or an apartment building that's distressed, storage buildings, motels, whatever, right? I buy something that's distressed, I fix it up, and then I go to the bank and refinance it. This is the whole BRRRR strategy, right? So going to the bank, refinancing it, and then going to do another project. So that first house, the $15,000 house, because that's what I had. I had a $15,000 credit limit. I had a buddy at a neighboring business swipe the card. He charged me a little fee and he gave me like $14,000 back. I took that money, went and closed on this really, really, really rinky dinky single family house. Oh, Mississippi, by the way. So, and believe it or not, I wish I could have bought every single $14,000 house because they were on the market. Now they're like $70,000, $80,000 homes. But anyways, fix that house up. My kids came in, helped me paint it. I hired some day laborers from the Home Depot and had them help me do some stuff. Looked on YouTube, how to change countertops, how to pull out a toilet, how to pull out a tub. Like, we did all of that with YouTube education and some day laborers from, well, really one day laborer at that time. One guy who I went and picked him up every day from the Lowe's or Home Depot, and he came with me to work, and I paid him at the end of every day. So
okay.
Just this really like sweat equity type of method. Ended up meeting a banker, who's still one of my favorite bankers now, but ended up meeting him through the relationship with the church elder. It was a banker he had used before. He made that connection. He came and looked at my project, and he was like, "Hey, like, you did a good job with this. I think I can loan you some money." Had me turn in my documents. I really didn't know, like, I hadn't got enough of the education yet to know exactly what I was doing.
Okay.
I just knew kind of some of the concepts from the podcast, but until you're doing it, you're just kind of like, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, he got an appraisal on the property for $85,000 after I was done, and I only had maybe $40,000 into the project.
Wow.
And he was like, I can give you this loan for $65,000, and you can take that money and go do another one. And that's what I do now, over and over and over again. So,
wow. So how did you find that distressed lead, right? And the reason why I'm asking this is people are always saying, I don't know how to find leads. I'm like, there's leads everywhere. What do you mean? Go to the MLS, call some agents, call some investors, go to Facebook groups in your local area, go to the RIA meetups, go to public records. Like, there's leads everywhere, right? Now, I'm going to say that with a caveat. I was the same person asking that question, right? It was when I started getting knowledge, I realized, like, wow, there's ways to do this and get leads and do deals. So those of you who are watching and listening, do not be afraid to ask us how you can go get leads. John and I will be more than happy to help you guys. We'll work you through the deals. We'll walk you through. We'll build relationships. Hey, look, if you're just trying to get some funds out, we'll buy the deals from you if it makes sense. So tell us how you found that first deal.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a few ways.
Okay.
And it seems so amateur now, but I would go on Zillow.com
Okay.
and they had a tab that said for sale by owner. I probably had heard this on a podcast where somebody said, talk to the owners. And I would just get every single for sale by owner number. I would scroll down and get the phone number of the owners. And I would just text them what any broke person would text them. Will you finance this to me?
Okay.
Please. Like begging, basically. Like, and I think I would do something like say in the text message, hey, I saw your house. I don't have any money. Will you sell or finance me your property?
Okay.
And one guy, like, he actually said, okay. Like, this was the $15,000 house guy.
Okay.
He said, okay. But then we ended up realizing that it wasn't a good idea to sell or finance it because I needed the money to do renovations. And I was going to have to use credit anyway. So it was just one of those situations where you're text messaging, you're getting on the phone with sellers, you're trying to create the conversations. I think there was a house after that where I had a realtor and I was still trying to use the seller finance strategy because in my mind, I wasn't bankable. So I'm still very nervous about talking to banks today, and I owe millions of dollars. But, there was one house where the realtor said, hey, it seems like you don't have this amount of money. Like, why don't you go talk to this guy? Because I think he would finance something to you. So I've gotten referrals from, realtors. I've gotten referrals from just texting owners directly. My favorite way today, if I had to find a project to do, like if I ran out of stuff to do, my favorite thing to do is just like get a list of property owners who own more than one property and just call them and tell them, hey, I'm trying to buy something. Can I help you? Like I talk to so many people who say there's no leads. I can't find a deal. And what they're missing is not a deal. Leads are everywhere. Like you said, they're missing a thought partner or a community like you or me or these groups that we are a part of that they can bounce something out of and say like, hey, that's a deal. Like you should do that. Or more often, I don't usually end up getting to that step. More often, it's them not actually getting on the phone with sellers. Like more often, that's what I see is like, hey, like, oh, I can't find a deal. How many sellers have you talked to in the last 7 days? Not brokers, not realtors. Even that would be good, but just sellers. Like, have you talked to property owners in the last 7 days? Oh, no, because they all want too much for their properties. You're not talking to enough of them then because you haven't talked to any in the last 7 days.
You gotta, it's just, guys, here's the thing, take the emotion out of it and just turn it into a numbers game. And what'll happen if you do this for 30 days, what John is saying, take all 7 days. Let's say you're going to call 100 people. Let's make it easier. Let's call 50.
Yeah, make it easier.
Let's call 10. Let's call 10.
Look, call 10 would be a great habit.
10. That's 70 a week. Times that by 4. That's 280 people that you've talked to. Guarantee there's a deal in there.
There's an opportunity in those calls. Yes. It may not be the property that you saw on the list. It may not even be like a house. It may be some apartments. It may be a commercial building. It may be, this is a cool one. Like they may offer to lend you money to keep doing them. Like they may say, like, I don't have a property, but do you need lenders? Like I have that happen all the time. Yep. So it's just being on the phone so that you can have access to the opportunity.
So John, many?
But it could be social media. It could be any way that you engage with sellers.
How many calls are you doing a day? Calls, texts. How many different people are you touching base with a day?
Okay, if you ask me, I would probably go on the low end, and I would probably say 5. Okay. But if you ask my wife, like yesterday was Easter. And I kid you not, yesterday evening when we got into bed, she said, is everything okay? You only took a few calls today. Right? And I was like, "Hey, do I really take that many calls?"
Bro,
But
my wife says the same thing. You ever watch the show Entourage with Ari Gold?
yes,
So
yes,
he's always on his phone. But when they had
yeah.
that was this episode, I think it was Passover. Oh, no, it was Easter Sunday.
Okay,
That was the show.
okay,
And the
yeah,
wife was
yeah,
like, no phone. So,
yeah.
so now he didn't have his primary phone, but he had a phone tucked away in his sock,
I didn't see that
pulled
one.
it out, had one on his belt buckle.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, man. You gotta stay connected. And John, so would you say you're doing five? Let's just say 5 new calls a day
Okay, so
at
I'm
roughly.
cheating, right? I'm cheating. I probably talk all day on the phone, but I do have at this stage I have virtual assistants that call for me.
Sure.
So I have virtual assistants that probably make, 300-400 calls a day. I probably get 5 or 6 leads from that, right? And then I have a project manager that follows up with those. So those are like the business call. Like that's the
Mhm.
business that operates while I'm
But
trying
we're
to
talking about somebody
hang with my
starting out.
family.
Starting out when you
Yeah, but
start.
somebody starting out, if they could make 70 calls a week, like you said, like
Yep.
it would change their outlook on opportunity.
Yes.
And I have a great script like that I can teach in like 30 seconds, right? Like
Wow.
you call somebody, they pick up the phone, you instantly try to build rapport, right? Like, hey, I know you probably get tired of people calling you all day. I promise this is not one of those calls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just am interested in real estate investor. I like to buy property. I see you do too. Do you have anything you might want to sell me? Right?
Yep.
They say yes. You want to find out what it is. If they say no, you want to find out like, well, hey, before you get off the phone, I'm kind of new to this. Like, is it worth it? Can you just tell me if it's worth being a real estate investor? Never have had anybody hang up on that question ever. They
Wow.
never hang up. Remind you, I'm calling people that own properties,
Yeah.
right? More than one. So my list is investors, and they love telling me that it's worth it. Yeah, I wish I had bought more. Yes, I wish I was doing what you're doing. All of these things they say. They may say call back later, but I'm going to follow up and have that
Mm-hmm.
conversation because those people become lenders. They become
Yeah.
people that sell or finance to you. They become mentors. And I mean,
Yep.
my wife, that's what she says right now. Like, I'm 35 years old. And those people that I talk to every week, I mean, usually they're 60, 70 years old. We're just building relationships. And frankly, when they get ready to sell something, they're going to call me. They're going to
Yeah.
say, John,
It's just
I'm ready to sell
following
you
up.
another one.
Just
Yeah.
following up, staying in front of them, stay mind share, right? Occupying the space in their mind. Like, hey, man, John's really just touching base with me every week. He's not like when I follow up, it's not always about the house or the asset. Hey, how's it going? If last week I had a conversation and they were sick, my call next week
Yep.
is, hey, how you feeling?
That's right.
And
That's
that's it.
right.
And
I
then what
love
happened?
this.
What has happened over time? They call me. Hey, Amit, I know we weren't ready to sell about a couple months ago, but we're ready now, and we'd love to work with you to see if because we built that rapport. Everybody thinks you're gonna
Yes.
call one time and get a deal. Guys, does that happen here and there? Yes, you get those types of deals. Is that the norm where you make one call and you lock a deal up? No, that is not the norm.
Never.
The
Never.
norm
I
is
don't usually have that happen. No.
I mean, you'll get those home runs here and there, right? Because we keep touching base with folks. But the reality is, you got to follow up. You got to build that relationship, that rapport, right? Especially when you start moving into like you're doing multifamily or hotels or storage units. You're talking with other investors. You're not talking with people that don't know anything about investments. So you're building this relationship that they start seeing like, yeah, this guy's real or this girl is real. That's what the follow-ups are for, to build that level of trust.
Yeah, the follow-ups are the key. And I mean, everything you're saying is like it's funny just talking to you because it's like this is my business, right?
Yeah.
And I do have two components to my business. I have the systematic side where cold callers are calling, and we probably miss some of those leads because people don't want to talk to them or they're not trained right or whatever. But the part that the beginners really want to know is like you can create a fully sustaining real estate business with just you, like just you on the phone.
Yes.
And
That's how I
I
started.
almost think that's better. Almost in some ways it's better because you're actually helping people that you connect to. You're creating this network that you've built.
Mhm.
And so I still love it when somebody calls me and say, "Hey, John, I got this one here. Do you want to look at it?" And sometimes it's too small now because I'm trying to do larger projects, but
Yeah.
I can still connect them to some of the people in my network that I know are still buying those deals
Hmm.
and make a little money that way. So
Absolutely. I
it's a
mean,
really, really
when I started,
great business.
I think I was doing about 6 hours of cold calling every day. And guys, kid you not, when I first started out, man, I had like pits in my stomach. I was anxious. I was nervous. I'd be sweating. I'd stutter. But over time, you start adapting and aligning and understanding like this is not emotional. The rejection or the no is not personal. When you can remove the personal space out of that, like somebody telling you no, you just realize like, okay, somebody said no, on to the next one. Let's get through the no's and let's get to the yes.
There's gonna be a yes, right?
Yep.
And one of the things I think that helped when I really started like making a bunch of offers was that when people see what you want, the more people know what you want, they will, if you have positive interactions with them, they will help you get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I was known as that guy who would like, I wouldn't just use one realtor. Like I would go to all the realtors and I would make an offer on everything. And a lot of it was lowballing, like, oh, you're lowballing. But they all knew that I was looking for stuff. And so when they had somebody come up with a project that they thought, hey, this guy might take less, or this guy might want to do a deal with you, they would call me. They would still get their commission, but it was because I was throwing so many offers out there.
So
And yeah,
so I'm very big on automation. Okay. Like I'm a very hard worker, but I'm also equally want to be lazy. Right. So like I don't want to do as much like that. So one of the things that I did, because I'm a real estate agent, so I have access to the MLS. And obviously, and guys, this is not, you don't have to be a real estate agent. You can probably find some colleagues or people in the industry. But what I did was I went on the MLS and I looked at every property that was, I did a filter, properties that had been on the market 60 days or longer, single family with a specific range of square foot, right? And then we wrote a code, a script where it scraped the data, took the real estate agent's phone number, email. It took all the data, took the asking price, and then we assessed it or compared it against the tax assessed value. Now, keep in mind, the tax assessed value is always less than what the market is. That's just the way it works out. So we then wrote a formula after doing data, like, okay, we're going to offer 80% of the tax assessed value. So we found that by offering 80%, we were able to purchase homes around like 60% of the ARV. And the automation tool automatically sent offers to the agents. So we're sending about probably 100 offers a day. Because that's the name of the game. How many offers can you get out? Right? The more offers you can get out to people, the more feedback you're going to get. Conversations, offers, deals. It's simple. It's simple, man.
It's very simple. Yes.
It's to simplify. Now, here's people who, okay, don't want to do the automation. Go on the MLS or see the active listings. Do 5 calls a day to those agents. Here's an offer. Here's an offer. Here's an offer. And boom.
Yep. And I mean, like, that's what I love about the real estate business in general, is that you can tailor the business to your strategy, to your comfort level. And different markets are different. Like, I invest out in Dallas right now. And when I put a home on the market that I'm flipping, I get those automated offers, right? So I understand that process. But, in Mississippi, where most of my rentals are, like, I know that, it would just tick a whole lot of people off if they were getting offers and they were getting that many and it was the same business. So different markets are different.
Yep.
And I love that strategy. I love automation as well, because it just lets you live the life you want to live.
Yeah,
So
it makes it easy, man.
I wish I was good enough to write a script. I probably would have been that investor client, that customer of yours, like, hey, send me a deal. Please, I'll pay you your commission. I'll pay you whatever you want. I pay more than commission a lot of times. So
and here's another little marketing tip. Now I started doing this more now. What I've learned is, over time, being in the business, I've had an opportunity to analyze what we're good at. Like, what is our business good at? We're good at talking with folks and closing deals. If you were to ask me, like, hey, Amit, what's your marketing like? I'll be like, look, we're average, maybe below average in marketing, but that's not our skill set. Do we still market? Yes. Direct to seller? Yes, we do. But what we've also incorporated, now this is for folks, here you go. If you have some money, but you don't have the time, we've hired other agencies to drive and deliver leads to us, pay-per-click, Facebooks. So they manage the campaigns. They provide us the leads. We close deals. We started doing that about a month ago. Out of that, we've locked up 3 deals.
Yeah,
right.
It works.
So it works. So you guys have to figure out what is important to you, right? And where you are. If you have money, you can potentially maybe pay for some leads. If you have no money, okay, Zillow, Craigslist, Facebook, real estate agents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I had anybody explain it as simply as you did. I think you said conversations, offers, deals.
That's it, man.
And that is so true. Like, okay, I don't have any deals. Well, have you made any offers? Well, no. Have you made any offers? Well, no. Can you check your conversations? And I think that's what I'm saying when I say, have you talked to sellers in the last 7 days? Have you had any conversations? So I just got some nuggets, y'all. Y'all better write that one down. Conversations, offers, deals.
That's it, man. It's simple, bro.
Direct from Amit and heard somewhere on my social media soon.
Yes, absolutely. So, all right. So we've talked about the education. We've seen how you've taken that education, empowered your life. How has real estate enriched your life? How has it changed? What changes? Family time, more time just in general, better living, health? Tell me.
Yeah. So, man, the biggest change is that I'm in control of my time. I still have customers who are everything to me. Like, I want to make sure that I serve them well. I still have team members and employees that I really want to help. I am really benefiting right now from being able to be where my kids are, from being able to, like, COVID happened. I wasn't worried about, like, income stopping. I wasn't worried about whether a boss would tell me to come in, even though I thought it was unsafe, or, I just wasn't worried about where my time got spent. I was in control of it. That's the biggest change. I used to be that husband that came in the house, and if it was too cold, I fussed about the AC being on. And, if the TV was left on, I would fuss at the children. I still kind of fuss because it's a habit, but it's a different fuss. Now I fuss because I'm trying to teach them something. And before I fussed because I actually cared if the light bill was an extra $10, right? So it changes, not your values, but it changes how you're able to think about money. I definitely thought money was much more limited. I mean, after all, I was getting a check on the 15th and the 30th, and that was it. And, now we get deposits every day from somewhere, and cash flow comes in lump sums instead of these large little amounts. So I do much better with that. I like to give this analogy, and people who are on, like, jobs where they get paid twice a month or once a month will understand this. When I used to get paid, let's say I got a check for $2,000 every 2 weeks or whatever. My mortgage took up one of those checks, right? Because we want to live in a nice house, we want to live in a nice area. My mortgage took up one of those. So now I'm trying to figure out how to live on the second check, right? You get into this real estate business and you start networking, like you can do deals that pay your mortgage for a year. So you're not even thinking about that. And when your mind is not thinking about a mortgage payment, that big bill, whatever it is for you, it might be your car, it might be a parent, I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever that bill is for you, when you can get your mind where you're not thinking about that big bill in that way, you can think so much bigger about what you can accomplish. Like not thinking about how to pay my mortgage. It's still big. It's still a biggest payment that I have, but I'm thinking about how to build something, right?
Yeah.
How to, like, my son says he wants to start a zoo. And I'm like, hey, you come up with a good business plan and you got your first investor. Go find some more. That's how it's changed my life.
You know what I've taken? So my wife and I also did the Dave Ramsey program. Now, obviously, where I'm sitting and where you're sitting, he'd probably frowning upon us from up above, kind of looking down on us, right? Like, yo,
Dave
you guys
Ramsey,
got way too much debt, man. What are y'all doing? But what I did was, you're so right about saying, when you can take care of the needs, your mortgage, your car, you can focus on thinking about other things. You're no longer stressed about it. So what I did was I wrote down, like they say, assets and liabilities. Okay, I have a liability of a mortgage. I don't have any assets to cover this mortgage. So I said, okay, my mortgage is $2,500. I'm going to now take the same process of killing my debt, getting rid of it. I'm going to take the same process and flip the coin and say, how many properties or cash flows do I need to have to offset this mortgage? Once let's say it's 4 properties, right? Or 5 properties at 500 each. Okay, let's move to the next liability. I have a car payment, $500. How many properties will it take me to cash flow to take care of this liability? And then what you start doing when you go down that list is, when you get to the bottom of it, you've covered all of your liabilities with your assets, and your mind can start thinking. Like if you have an off day and you're like, or your wife calls you or your husband calls you and says, let's go out to the store, the kids need stuff. You don't have to worry like, well, if I don't work today and I don't get a deal, I won't be able to pay the mortgage. If I don't pay the mortgage, I could potentially get behind. You start relieving that stress, man. That was so important what you just said, man. To be able to take care of the needs so that you can start thinking and clearing your mind up with space.
And it's not changing who we are.
No.
I know where I grew up. Everybody who listens to my stuff know where I come from. I mean, it's hard out here. It's not that, it's just, it's going into a restaurant and just saying, just order, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not that you're overindulging. It's not that you're being wasteful. Mm-hmm. It's just like, my son's 10 years old. He's an athlete. Like, I don't want to have to tell him to share with his sister because, we just got to do that.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, that's how I grew up. I mean, my dad would laugh at some of the buffet line stories and all of that. It's just, it's like, it's when you know that that's still who you are. Yeah. It's not that you changed who you are. It's just you've jumped in a vehicle that is allowing you to do more. And I hear it in your voice. I know it's changed your life as well.
100%, man.
I love people who decide today is the day I'm going to take advantage of this. You don't have to do what folks like us do. I think I bought 10 houses last month, right? Or 10 properties of some kind. Like, you don't have to do that.
No.
Like, for most people, if you did 1 or 2 projects a year, it would be game changing for your finances.
Imagine if you did 2 projects and let's say they cash flowed $500 each. That's an extra $1,000 a month. That's 12 extra G's. That is big for some people. 12 extra $1,000 a year takes care of maybe 6 months of a mortgage payment or an entire car payment for a year. Yes. One thing you don't have to worry about. So, guys, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's okay if you're my first year, I only did 6 deals. But those 6 deals changed my life, man. Like, You know what, how it changed my life? It gave me the mindset proof of concept that I can do this. One deal made me feel that way. Wow, I did a deal. I can do this. I can get through the hurdles, the pitfalls, and the struggles and get to the other side. I agree with you with 100%, John. John, listen, man, how can people get in touch with you, bro? What you got? Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm a little old school, so I got Facebook.
Okay.
And you can find me on Facebook. I have a wealth and real estate Facebook group. That's the name of the group. Give a lot of content in that group. I'm also on Instagram at Grab the Map and on TikTok at Grab the Map. I don't actually see what gets posted there or respond to messages, but there's content there. And if you want to reach out to me, just hit me up on Facebook. I think that's where me and you connected as well.
We connected, yeah.
So definitely looking forward to future conversations with you. Anybody who sees this content, like, I'm a totally open book. I probably give away way too much stuff, but hey, look, if you act on it, like, you will be in the minority of folks. You'll change your life, and you'll probably come back and we'll do business together in the future. So
here's what people ask me, like, why do you give all this away for free? Because the reality is that if I give it to 100 people, only 1 or 2 persons going to do something with it. And that's why I take so much pride and put importance in the empowerment section, because you can have all the knowledge, but if you're not willing to do anything with it, it's wasted. So listen, John, I appreciate you being on. Thank you so much for making time, man. And we definitely got to connect and network and meet up in person one of these days.
Hey, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Love to connect with you. Love to talk to people who are doing this.
Yeah,
and
man.
I see that you got a full scale media company here too. So I need to learn from you. That's the only thing about paradise out here. Sometimes there's lots of different noises that you can't control, but
all good, man. All good.
It's a good week. It's a good week to be able to just watch the kids. Man, if you just watch your kids from year to year, it's like a miracle is happening or something, isn't it?
100%, man. 100%, bro. 100%.
Hey, thanks again for the invite, and I definitely would like to return the favor one day as well.
Absolutely, John. Thank you so much, man. Have a blessed day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Take care.